Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram. So, in the last class, we were studying the 32nd sloka, the 32nd verse of the Vivekachudamani. Today, we will enter into the discussion where, in the 33rd sloka, the function of a guru has been described. So, what's the purpose of a guru? So, that's been described in the 33rd sloka. So, let us read the sloka and then we will go to the discussion. Ukta sadhana sampanna tattva jigyashu atmanah upasidet gurum pragyam yasmat vandha vimokshanam. So let a person who is endowed with the aforesaid qualifications, this Ukta sadhana sampanna. If you recapitulate that we were still the 32nd sloka, we were studying the fourfold spiritual practices in which an aspirant has to be qualified before he approaches the Guru. So, here that's why the word aforesaid means the already described fourfold spiritual practices, the one who is already endowed with them. So he, that Ukta Sadhana Sampanna means such a person who is endowed with those fourfold spiritual practices and who is Tattva Jigyashu, who is earnest, who is have the earnestness to know about the essence of his being, the Tattva Jigyashu Atman, of his own self, of the Atman. What's the real nature of it? The one who is earnest to know that, and one who is sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, one who is endowed with all those fourfold qualifications. Such a person, upasidet gurum pragyam. So he has to approach the guru, the one who has a fourfold spiritual, who is already endowed with those fourfold spiritual qualifications, and one who is earnest to know about the truth of the Atman, the real essence of that truth of Atman. He has to approach the Guru, humbly has to approach the Guru. Yasmat vandha vimokshanam. So what is the purpose of approaching the Guru? For getting delivered from the bondage. So Guru is the one who can deliver us from our bondage. He delivers emancipation, liberation from bondage. So that's the purpose for which one should approach the Guru. So that's the sloka, 33rd sloka. So Ukta Sadhana Sampanna. As we have already described, it speaks of the fourfold practices. What are those fourfold practices? Viveka, Vairagya, Shama Damadi Shat Sampatti, Mumukshutvam. Viveka speaks of the discrimination between the real and the unreal, followed by Vairagya. Once you develop the discrimination between something which is eternal, something which is permanent, and something which is ephemeral. The thing which is eternal, that's the thing which is real, and once you have developed that discrimination, naturally you are bound to develop a dispassion for the ephemeral. So this Vairagya means Iha Amutra Phala Bhoga Virag. That the results of actions which I accrue by my actions here or hereafter, the idea of going to heaven and enjoying the higher pleasures of life, that also should fall off if we really want emancipation. So the Vairagya means the hankering after the results of action here and hereafter, that has to fall off. That's Vairagya. Followed by Shama Damadi Shat Sampatti. Shat Sampatti means 6 treasures. What are those 6 treasures? Shama, Dhamma, Adi. Shama, Dhamma, etc. So what are those etc.? Another 4. Shama, Dhamma, Titiksha, Uparati, Samadhana, Shraddha. So that we have studied in details. That Shama speaks of the controlling of the mind. Dhamma, the controlling of the senses. Titiksha is the endurance from all the opposites in the form of pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow, heat and cold. So you develop the capacity to endure them without any grudge, without any grievance. That speaks of the calmness of the mind, that nothing can affect me. And then comes the Uparati. Uparati speaks that yes, I have controlled my external senses, but my mind still may be going to the objects of the senses. We find that though we may be secluded from the world, we have detached our senses from the sensate objects, but the mind, because of its past association, still has the tendency to roam in the pleasures of the worldly objects. So Uparati speaks of bringing it back. Don't allow the mind to get associated with the objects of the senses. And then comes Samadhana. If you can develop that type of calmness, that can lead to that intense focus, intense meditation, where you become almost one with the object of meditation. And Shraddha speaks of, because all this practice is not going to yield result in a single day. But we know that the scripture has mentioned that it do happen. This, if you resort to this practice, it will take you to the realization. The Guru, who is the authority of the scriptures, who following the scriptures has already attained that spiritual illumination. So he is also the authority. So I have faith in him. With a faith in the Guru and in the words of scriptures, I persevere in my spiritual journey. So Shraddha is an important factor. And the last quality is the mumukshutva. That unless you have that yearning, tremendous yearning, the other practices will be of no avail. So the yearning only entails that the other practices become effective. The tremendous yearning to realize the ultimate truth, that speaks of the mumukshutvam. So one who is already endowed with this fourfold spiritual practices, who is fourfold spiritual qualifications, these practices has led to the perfection. So now he is having the qualification. So when he is endowed with that. And then Tattva Jigyashu Atmana. So one who desires to know one's true self. So just, that in Vedanta, this is the beauty, that they are not asking you to believe in anything. Here the idea is that try to know the self, that we all are aware of ourself, that I am. The most used English word is I. They say if it has been found, that is research. This I, we all are aware of that. But what's the real nature of that I? So from there the Vedanta starts. It's not asking you to believe in God or in any other spiritual sublime truths. That do you believe that you exist? I am. So find out the real nature of that I, that who you are. Are you the body? I have a sense that when I'm identified with the body, I sometimes feel almost identified with it. But am I really the body? No. As we sometimes give that example, that suppose someone, because of some accident, he has to ampute one of his limbs. Does he feel that he is just 70% of himself or 80% of himself because one limb has been removed? No, he feels still he is that I. So that amness has nothing to do with your association with the body, with your mind, with your senses, that what that real I is. So the one who has developed that quest to know that real I, the real I of which we are always aware, what's its real nature, and one who is Shamadamadi Shat Sampatti, one who is have already endowed with that, such a person, when now he has to approach the Guru. Upasidet Guru. So should approach the Guru. Now he will instruct. And what is the qualification of the Guru? That the other qualifications will be enumerated in the succeeding, in the next sloka. But here one word they are using, that he should be Pragya. That what this word Pragya means? The one who has Pragya is Pragya. The one who is endowed with Pragya. Now what is Pragya? The definition of Pragya is Prakrishta Niratishaya Gya Avagati Pragya. Peerless, perfect knowledge is Pragya. Just as we were speaking, that we all are aware of that I am. That's something we all are aware. I am. I cannot just leave that my amness apart. I'm always with it. I'm always aware of that my amness. But what's the real nature of it? Till I am not aware of that real nature of that amness, I cannot be, it cannot be said that I am having pragya. So pragya means prakrishta jnana, the peerless, perfect knowledge. And that happens when you know the real nature of the self. As in the 428th verse of this Vivekachudamani, this will be defined, that what is pragya, what is that perfect knowledge? Brahma atmana shodhitayo eka bhava avagahini nirvikalpa cha chinmatra vritti pragyeti kathyate. So what's that idea? That it's a type of mental function where you are always aware of the identity of the Atman and the Brahman. That I am not this limited body-mind complex. My association with this limited body-mind complex is because of illusion. Just like the sun getting reflected in the waves of water. There are so many waves, innumerable waves. Each and every wave will have the reflection of the sun. One sun appears as many. As per the reflection is concerned, the wave may get identified with the reflection, thinking itself as a limited psychophysical existence, but its real nature is something which is beyond the reflection. So we are that Brahman, which is beyond the limits of this body-mind complex. The Brahman getting associated with the body-mind complex is appearing as Atman. So Shodhitaya, the one who has purified this knowledge about the Atman, which when you purify, when all the adjuncts fall off, all the things which you have wrongly associated with the idea of yourself. So Shodhitaya means filtering. You remove all those dross. The idea of that your body, your mind, this is the dross that you all filter. And then what remains? That you get identified with the Brahman. So one who has done that Brahma Atmana Shodhitaya Eka Bhava. After doing that, his mind is always fixed in the idea that I am not this limited body-mind complex. I am the Atman. I am the Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. So this idea is always there like a flow in as a background of his mind. That is the idea of Eka Bhava Avagahini, like a flow. This thought is always there. Nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpa is without any duality. That all the ideas of your amness is associated with something else. That I am the body, I am the mind, my relative, my wealth. So something else gets associated with your idea of your amness. So in Sanskrit there are these two words, mamatva and asmita. That pure asmita is amness. That amness, when gets associated with something else, that becomes mamatva, mine. When anything you feel is mine, that speaks of your association with something which you are not. So all this association has fallen off. You are aware of your pure amness without its association of anything. That's the idea of that nirvikalpa, that all the vikalpas, all the things which is associated, which are attributed with it, that has fallen off. You and your chin matra, you know that you are the pure conscious being. You are the ultimate conscious principle which is being projected as this body-mind complex, and through the body-mind complex it is being projected as this universe, as this world. But in reality, you are that chin matra, that pure Atman, that pure conscious principle. So the one who is always aware of that, so for him, he is being established in that pragya. So that kind of mental function which cognizes the identity of the self and Brahman is purified of all adjuncts and which is free from all duality and which has identified itself with the pure intelligence. So such type of intelligence is called pragya. So the Guru, now you will understand what? That he is just not the one who is well versed in the scriptures. Just after studying the scriptures, through his spiritual practices, he have went to that realization where he is always aware of his pure conscious self as the essence of his identity. So such a person is supposed to be, called to be established in pragya, and he alone is pragya. So you have to approach a guru who is established in his self. That's the one who is pragya. And then only yasmat vandha vimokshana. So then only when you appraise the benefit of approaching such a guru is stated. That what happens? By proximity with such a guru, the bonds which you have imagined because of ignorance, that starts from ahankara. The first evolute of ignorance is ahankara. From ahankara, this all other, ending up with the body, all other evolutes comes from that ahankara. So that the moment that because of the reflection of the Brahman in this psychophysical complex gives you the sense of that limited individuality. That's the ahankara. From that, the other evolutes just one by one come into existence, and you, by your association with the Guru, become aware of your false identity with these layers of association, and you again become aware of your pure self, and that entails in your liberation. So it only happens when you approach a guru. It cannot be only by studying the scriptures. That will help to a certain extent to clear our idea about the self. But unless we are in association with the guru who has realized the ultimate reality, our spiritual evolution can never start. It can never commence. It commences only when we come in association with the Guru and we start our spiritual journey in his association. So that's the idea which has been enunciated in the 33rd sloka. Now the definition of Guru will be spoken of in the 34th and in the 35th sloka. So who is a Guru? So it's very interesting. Somehow it has coincided. We just had Guru Purnima, and immediately after that the Vivekachudamani class is actually describing all the qualities of a Guru. What are the qualities? Srotriya, Avrijinaha, Akamahata, Yah, Brahma Viduttama, Brahmani Uparata, Shanta, Nirindhana Iva Anala, Ahetuka, Daya Sindhu, Vandhu, Anamatang Satam. So, very nicely, these two slokas, the 34th and the 35th, we are studying together. So, what are the qualities which has been spoken of? First is, he should be well versed in the scriptures, in the Vedas. That is what is meant by Srotriya. In the olden days, it was all Shruti. Means the Guru will be reciting the Vedas and the disciple will be memorizing it just by listening to the words of the Guru. So as he's just listening, he's memorizing the Vedas by listening from the recitation of his guru. So that's why it is called, the one who is well versed in the Vedas is called Shrotriya, by hearing, who has memorized the entire thing. So that's why he's Shrotriya. He is well versed in the Vedas. Avrijina, he is sinless. And he can be sinless only if the next quality has been spoken. He is akamahata, unpierced by desire. Akamahata. Hata means to get injured. The one who has not been inflicted by any desire. Akamahata. He only can be avrijina, sinless. So he should be sinless, he should be untainted by desires, and a knower of Brahman par excellence. Brahma viduttama. Why knower of Brahman par excellence? There can be gradations in the knowledge of Brahman. Just intellectually understanding the conception of Brahman, that also is a type of knowledge. But here he is called the Brahma Viduttama, that the par excellence. Why? It is not just intellectual knowledge. He has realized, through spiritual practice, he has realized. He went to that realization where he is convinced, his Dhrira Nishchaya. It's only realization which can give us conviction. Suppose you have read in the geography book, a small child has read in the geography book that there is something called ocean. That the earth, 2/3 is ocean surface. Earth surface, 2/3 is ocean, only 1/3 is land. But he has never seen. And someone may come and convince him that it's all bogus. There is nothing called ocean. There may be some small water bodies, but like ocean is nothing is there. And he may get convinced because he has just read in the book, he is yet to see. And for the first time, when he just goes and sees the ocean, he just stands on the sea beach and just sees the ocean, that vast expanse, limitless expanse of water. And now, if you say that ocean, there's nothing called ocean, he won't even argue with you. He will just say you are mad. Why? Because he has realized. It's no more just the Shrotriya. Shrotriyas have heard. After hearing through his life, he has went to a realization. He has came face to face with the truth. In the words of Shankaracharya, the truth has become karatala amala kavat, just like a fruit in the palm of your hand. So for such a person, it has been spoken of as his Brahma Viduttama, that the knower of Brahman par excellence, who has withdrawn himself into the Brahman. Brahmani uparata. Knowing Brahman and then living his life in the contemplation of Brahman. So that's Brahmani uparata, who is calm, shanta. And the next is an allegory. And this, what's the allegory has been given here to explain that calm person beyond all desires, he's like fire that has consumed its fuel. In the fire, if you go on pouring fuel, it will flare up. But if you don't pour fuel, the fire gradually will just get exhausted. So the one who is desireless, it's just like he's no more pouring fuel in the fire. So the fire, as it is not being poured with the fuel, gradually the strength of the fire diminishes and it gets extinguished. So that's the example which has been given. So Guru is like that. He's like the fire that has already consumed its fuel, who is a boundless reservoir of this 35th sloka says, the next sloka, that is boundless reservoir of unconditional mercy. Ahetuka daya sindhu. He has no selfish motive, that no motive for earning wealth, name, fame, just out of unbound compassion, seeing the misery of the suffering of the humankind. He comes to instruct them in the ways of spiritual living. So that's his Ahetuka Daya Sindhu, and a friend of all people who are humble. Anamata satam bandhu anamata. Anamata means, namata means who always bows down. That means who is humble. And in Sanskrit, wherever the a prefix is used, it is used in the sense of encompassment. Like when we say Samudra Himachal, many say that before the British in India, the concept of that geographical unity of India was not there. So it's a wrong idea. It was there, because even in our the literature, like Kalidas Shakuntalam, these phrases are there. Samudra Himachal, that which encompasses the land, which encompasses from ocean to the mountains. That one land, Samudra. So wherever, Nanda itself means happiness. When you use the prefix means from the beginning to the end. It's unadulterated happiness. That is Ananda. Otherwise, Nanda means happiness. So in Sanskrit, wherever we use it is used in the sense of, this prefix is used in the sense of encompassment. So here they're saying Namata. Namata itself means humility. When you add the prefix it says by nature he is humble. Sometimes because of our own interest, because of some interest, we may show humility, that we know we are going to get something from some person, and for the time being we may show our humility. It's Anamata means his nature has totally been transformed. He is a very humble person, full of humility, because he has the earnest desire to know the truth, and that has made him humble. With full humility, he approaches the Guru. To such a disciple, our Guru is just like a friend, Bandhu. The word, what's the real meaning of the Bandhu, we will come to it. So now let us just take these words and try to elaborate them a little more. The Shrotriya, that one who has studied the Upanishads. As we have mentioned, in the olden days, the study never meant reading any text. It was just by hearing from the mouth of the Guru. And you have to hear and learn. So that's why they were called Shrotriya. So as it has been mentioned in the Panini Sutra, Shrotriya Chanda Adheti. Chanda means the Vedas. All the Vedas, as they are in the form of verses. So they are Chanda. The one who has learned the Chanda, he is Shrotriya. So it is only he who has inquired into the Brahman, and he has, after the study of the Upanishads, he only can have that inquiry for the truth. Because in the world of sensate pleasure, there is nothing which can give us that enkindling of that knowledge of the Brahman. As we give that example, that why sometimes we don't find the answer to the big questions of our life, because most probably we are not relating to the dimension in which that answer lies. That the example which we give again and again, that if we ask a student to draw exactly 4 triangles by joining 4 points, he can never do it. Impossible. The answer is, you have to draw 3 points in the paper and imagine the 4th point on the space. Now you join, you get a triangular pyramid. You have joining the 3 points, you get 1 triangle on the paper, and then imagine 1 point on the space, and from each point, if you draw a line, you get another 3 triangles, which is joining the base and the point in the space to form another 3 triangles. You get exactly 4 triangles by joining the 4 points. Why the student couldn't answer? Because he was trying to solve the answer by putting the points on the paper. So he never took the 4th dimension, the space, the length, breadth, the height. He has not taken that space into consideration. He was just trying to find the answer in the 2 dimension of his page. So similarly, in our life, that the questions of life, that why this life, after all, just to eat, to procreate, and then at last the death is waiting for us. Is this for which the life is? What's the meaning of the life? Is there anything beyond this life? So when we ask all those questions, then only the question of relating to that another dimension, the spiritual dimension of our life comes. And for that, when that question comes, there should be some knowledge which has already been transmitted through the spiritual lineage. And that speaks of the Upanishad. That speaks of the tradition, the parampara, the spiritual lineage, which we have inherited from the past. And that's the thing which has been spoken of as the Upanishads. So that's the knowledge. When you have that inquiry, you have to relate to that another dimension of existence through the study of the scriptures. And the one who has done that, he is a Shrotriya. And then he should be Avrajiniya. This is very important. Many say that there is no idea of morality in Vedanta. That this speaks of Atman, Brahman, but what about morality? Those who have just studied it very shallow, they only will say such thing, that it is just some knowledge. It has nothing to do with the so-called morality. So here you find that this word itself speaks a lot. It speaks that this thing is just not an intellectual conviction. It speaks of sinlessness, this avrajinaha. It means one who is sinless. In the Kathopanishad, it's not that it is a Prakarana Grantha which Shankaracharya has written. Many may say, oh, he has written much later. But in the Vedas, is there any reference of one should be sinless to really reach to that spiritual height? Just as when I was in my college, I still remember one of my professor, an extremely learned professor. He was exponent. His presentation was wonderful. He had a wonderful knowledge, but he had the habit of drinking. So sometimes we found that he is totally drunk. But what he's explaining, there won't be any flaw in it. It has just as if that knowledge has become his reflex. So for all this academic knowledge, it has nothing to do with your life. Whatever you may be, it has nothing to do with your life. You can have that knowledge and you can lead a carefree life also. But for the spiritual path, you have to be what you are professing as your knowledge. Because when you say, I am the Atman, I am not the body, not the mind, not the senses, then how can you associate with the body, mind, senses to do all the things which has to do with the sensate world? So these two can never go together. So if that you are well versed in the scriptures, first it should find expression in your life as sinlessness. Even in the Upanishads, in the Kathopanishad, we find there is a mantra which is indicating that. What's that mantra? Na virato duscharitat, na avirata duscharitat, na ashanta, na asamahita, na ashanta manasa vapi pragyane nainam apnuyat. The one cannot attain that pragyanena apnuyat. That he cannot. Who? The one who is avirata, who have not desisted from evil conduct. Virata means avirata means to desist. There is an interval, not an interval. There is a total. Desisting from the so-called the sensate pleasures of life. He has stopped. He has desisted from the evil conduct. That's what is meant by na avirata. Duscharitat, from the evil conduct. He has desisted from it once for all. From charitra means conduct. Duscharitat means of evil conduct. The one who has not desisted from the evil conduct. For him, there cannot be any pragya. Na ashanta. This is a Kathopanishad sloka. It's a part of the Veda. Na ashanta. The one whose mind is not calm. Means who doesn't possess shama. That calmness of the mind. Ashanta. Na asamahita. That who is not composed. Means he is neither endowed with shama nor, and what to speak of, uparati. That asamahita speaks of uparati. That he has stopped his senses to be in association with the sense objects. And we know that even if we stop our senses to be getting in association with the sense object, because of the past impression, the mind may still go on visualizing them, may still go on dwelling on them. So asamahita means he has calmed his mind by stopping it from getting associated with the sense objects, and he doesn't take any sankalp also, doesn't take any resolution of the so-called sensate pleasures of life. So he's samahita. The one who is asamahita, for him there cannot be any so-called pragya. So asamahita, one who is not at peace with oneself. So it again speaks of that he is not having the titiksha. So all the qualities you will find has been mentioned. He is not at peace with oneself. For him, he can never attain that pragya. This is pragyanena, na pragyanena apnuyat. So this the one who is well versed in the scripture, that the knowledge must be internalized in the form of character. As we find in the life of Ramakrishna, that when he was practicing spirituality, at that time he took a resolution that he will not touch coins, no metal. And later we find that even unknowingly, if he touches metal, he will get terrible pain. That his reflex has changed. Seeing that, Swami Vivekananda has a wonderful definition. It is actually his definition of education. Vivekananda learned from Ramakrishna's life. What? That education is the nervous association of ideas. It's not accumulation of information. It is nervous association of ideas. That I have taken a resolution that after all, the wealth is something which binds. So I renounce wealth. The renunciation has become a nervous association. It has converted your reflex. That instead of getting drawn towards the wealth, you get repelled by it. That as in the Bhagavad Gita also it has been mentioned, just like a tortoise, whenever it's in danger, its limbs are withdrawn. So for a jnani, the real jnani, that whenever he sees the sensed objects, instead of getting lured by it, his reflex has changed. He gets withdrawn from it. So that's the idea of this one who is samahita, one who is at peace with oneself. So such a person alone can be a real guru, that one who has srotriya, one who is sinless. And then comes akamahata. And you can be sinless only when you have no desires. The reason for saying that one should be avrijina, that is sinless, is given by the next quality, akamahata. If you have desire, then you are prone to sin. Somehow or other, you will be lured. And once you are lured, you are bound to commit sin. So akamahata speaks of the reason behind his avrijina. That why he is sinless? Because he has no desire. The desire cannot pierce him, cannot afflict him, cannot injure him. Ahata, he is kamahata. Means he is not injured by the kama. He can never be injured. So kama can no more disturb him. Such a person alone can be sinless. And such a person again can be Brahma Viduttama. So one who there's no idea that who can become akamahata? The one who has realized the self. Otherwise, we can never become akamahata. Only one who has realized the self, for him, desires falls off. Before that, we will be constantly fighting with our desires. It is there by consciously getting disassociated with them. I somehow try to develop a peace in my mind, but I know that if I get associated with them, it will disturb me. But for a man who has realized his real nature, then nothing can tarnish him. Even if he's in the world, he's associating with all the sensate objects, nothing can disturb him because he has seen the reality. Once you have seen the reality, nothing can affect you. So for such a person, he is a Brahmavitta. As even in the Bhagavad Gita, we will find that is a wonderful sloka, that Vishaya vinivartante, niraharasya dehina, rasavarja rasopyasya, parang drishtva nivartate. That the aspirants may restrain the senses from the objects of enjoyment. Vishaya vinivartante niraharsa. But the taste for the sense object remains. I may somehow restrain this resolution, but I have the taste for it. But the one who has seen the param drishtva, that one seen the absolute, for him the taste also has fallen off. That even the taste ceases for those who have realized the Supreme. So only if you are a Brahmavid, who have the one who has known the ultimate reality, who has realized it, for him he can become akamata, and once you become akamata, naturally you are bound to be sinless. So this makes me remember that even in Dakshineshwar, Ramakrishna heard of a monk who was leading a very immoral life. And when Ramakrishna reprimanded him, not that what he reprimanded, that being a sadhu, why are you leading this type of life? You are doing all these immoral acts. And the sadhu replied, this world is mithya. Are my acts then real? They are also mithya. And the Ramakrishna told, I spit on such Vedanta. So intellectually it may seem to be correct that if the world is mithya, are my actions correct? They are also mithya. But to realize that the world is mithya, through spiritual practices you have to first purify your mind. And that purified mind will take you to realization. So when you come back from the realization, your mind has already been purified. Now how can you go to all those gross actions? You cannot. So it's not an intellectual conviction, it's a realization. And the process of realization is first, you have to calm down your mind and contemplate on your real self. That contemplation will take you to the realization. From realization, when you come back, your mind has already been purified. So what remains is all those pure vrittis. So how can you now again get engaged in so-called sensate pursuits? You cannot. So intellectually the idea is correct. That yes, if everything is false, are my acts real? They are also false. But this is just mere word. I haven't realized it. And to realize that, that's why we always say spirituality is realization. It's not just intellectual consent. For that, purity is must. Through purity I went there. And from there, when you again come back, your mind is already purified. You can no more again get involved in that gross way of living. It remains only in that the plane. It is just like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, it is just like removing a thorn with the help of another thorn. The so-called worldliness is like a thorn which has pierced into my skin, and to remove that I take another thorn from the same plant. With this, I remove this. The thorn which has pierced me, I pluck it out with the help of the second thorn, and then both the thorns are of no use. I throw them. So this second thorn is all our spiritual practices with which I have already just removed the first thorn which has pierced me. Then if it has already been removed, then how can a person still get engaged in all those immoral things? It is impossible. So you will find that all the qualities which have been spoken of are all linked. That he is Brahmavid, that's why he is Akamahata, and that's why he is a Vrijina. So then Brahmani, such a person naturally, his mind has already been purified. All the gross thoughts are no more there. When you are going to the realization with the help of the idea that Aham Brahmasmi, this idea takes you to that realization. So it's always better to clarify the ideas, that how the idea Aham Brahmasmi takes you to the realization. So when you are contemplating Aham Brahmasmi constantly, knowing that you are that ultimate reality, that each and every thought is actually hammering your idea of ego, this ahankara, that I am this limited body-mind complex, it is hammering on that. And this ahankara is the hub of the will of our personality. And all the spikes are our innumerable desires, which we have acquired through our innumerable births. Once you have a desire, it's never lost. It remains as a sanskara in your mind. They're all there. Some are manifested in this life, others are unmanifested. But they're all there. Some are vyakta, avyakta. They are like those innumerable spikes. So when you are practicing this Aham Brahmasmi, the Vyakta Vasana, all the spikes, some are unmanifested, some are manifested. Those Vyakta Vasana doesn't allow my mind to calm down. So that those Vyakta Vasana, willfully I have to get rid of them. Otherwise my mind won't calm down. So Vyakta Vasana, willfully, through resolution, I am trying to control them. But there are so many vasanas, innumerable, which are not manifested. If they get favorable circumstances, they will be manifested. So how can I go on struggling with each of them one by one? It is impossible. So spiritual practice has this twofold thing. One is short term, one is long term. What is the short term? Taking care of the desires which have manifested through your strong resolution. And this practice, contemplation, Aham Brahmasmi, or if you're a devotee of God, any dualistic religion, what's the idea? God is, I am. As a spirit, our relation is eternal. This body will fall off, but the real me is always in association with the divine. So there also you will find the idea that the devotion speaks of hammering the idea of this limited ego. Even here also, when you are constantly meditating on your Atman, it is hammering on that ego. So through your morality, you have taken care of your Vyakta Vasana, all the manifested desire. And through the practice of this contemplation, you are hammering off the hub of the will. So if one or two spikes breaks, the will is still intact. The will of your personality is still intact. But if the hub is taken out, the entire will collapses. So that's the two field practices. So when through that practice, the hub is being removed, you go to the realization. But how have I went to the realization? That one contemplation, that Aham Brahmasmi, that was the idea which has taken you to the realization. So in Vedanta they say that even when you go through the realization for the first time, because of your prarabdha, that immediately your body won't fall off. You still continue, but you have already purified your mind. So you continue with only that one thought, the thought of the Atman. The other things have already fallen off. With that, you still continue as long as the past impulse for which this life has started doesn't get exhausted. Just the way when the fan is revolving, how do we stop the fan? We switch it off. When you switch it off, does the fan stop immediately? No. It goes on revolving for some time till its impulse, its inertia of motion gets exhausted. So what we have to do, we just have to disconnect the electricity from the coil of the fan. And then it will take its own time to stop. Similarly, when the desires has fallen off because of the past, this impulse, the body, the mind will still continue. It doesn't fall off immediately. But you have already purified your mind. That has taken you to the realization. So in the mind, when you come back from that state and continue with your body, what's the thought? There's only one thought. And that has been spoken of as this Brahmani Uparata Shanta Nirindhana Iva Anala. It is always thinking of Brahmana. All other desires has vanished. So your psyche has become like the fire which it can never be flared up by any more fuel. Nirindhana Iva Anala. So there's only one, that vritti, that continues till your body falls off, and that is Brahmani Uparata. So see this how this each and every word is so important. So such a person, now how he can really come back, that all the desires has fallen off. Only one vritti. With that he is somehow continuing. But still, he comes back for the welfare of mankind by resorting to this unconditional, this love for the humanity. That's being spoken of as the Ahetuka Daya Sindhu, the Guru's compassion. So that's the thing which helps him to keep himself bound in this physical plane of existence. He comes down in this plane, that out of this unbound compassion, and he is the Bandhu. This Daya Sindhu means he is full of compassion It is a state of vyuthana. In scripture they say that he has went into samadhi, from that he has came back. For such a person only that type of unbound compassion is possible. He has seen the reality, and after that, out of compassion, to help the people out of the suffering because of ignorance. They all are the self. We are all the self. That's in the last Bhagavad Gita class we were studying. That when someone, in the last gospel, Sri Ramakrishna's gospel, that wonderful conversation was there. That someone asked that do we really reincarnate? Ramakrishna never gives direct answer. What he says? He says it's so difficult to understand the ways of the Lord, his Leela. And then he speaks of some episode in the Mahabharata, that Bhishma was lying on the bed of arrows, and Krishna with the Pandavas went to meet him, and the Pandavas, Arjuna saw that this Bhishma is having tears in his eyes, and he felt that he is such a jnani. How can he be crying because of this near death, the suffering of these afflictions can make him suffer, make him cry. So he was really in doubt, and he asked Krishna that how can such a realized soul be suffering, be crying? And then Krishna asked Arjuna, why don't you ask him? And when Arjuna asked that what's the reason of that he is crying, his answer was wonderful. That is what Bhishma told, that I am crying because I understood nothing of the divine Leela, God's play. What's the God's play is? That the God himself is with the Pandavas, and still they have to go through so much of suffering. So sometimes we may feel, that's in the last class we were saying, that someone asked that is there something called reincarnation? And Sri Ramakrishna is saying this episode and saying it's so difficult to understand God's Leela. And you may find as if he has evaded the answer. But actually he has given a wonderful answer. It's not only Arjuna who is in association with God. It is we all are in constant association with God. Our real essence is the Brahman. Because of ignorance, we think that we are this physical being. The God is always with us. Because of ignorance, we never feel his presence and go through these afflictions. And that is his God's Leela. God is God's Maya. That's the thing the scripture is saying. God, out of his unbound compassion, comes down to break this delusion. That's why he's Ahetuka Daya Sindhu. It's only possible when one has already went to the realization, and then there is a Vyuthana. He comes back to help out humankind to come out from this suffering. And that's why he's called Bandhu. The word Bandhu means one who destroys the afflictions. Bandhu is Dukkha Haraka. The one who destroys your afflictions is Bandhu. So that's why he's been called Bandhu. And then his friend, not to all again. Then you may say, how come? There is a partiality. He's mentioning namatang satam. Those who are humble, his friend to them. Why this partiality? It is not partiality. He is actually having unbound compassion for all. But if you are not ready to accept the guidance, if you are happy to be engrossed in the sensate pleasures of world, not having any inquiry for your spiritual dimension of existence, then who can help you out? Even God cannot help you out. The one who has already developed that earnestness, yearning to know, and that has given him the humility. From the yearning, what has happened? As he has the yearning, now he has started developing the faith in the words of the scriptures. Shraddha has developed. Faith in the words of scriptures, faith in Guru, and he has developed that mumukshutvam, earnestness. That's when the one who has mumukshutva, the one who has Shraddha, is bound to be humble. For any knowledge, when you're having the intense yearning for a particular knowledge, and you have faith in the authority, those one who is going to teach you, these two things will make you humble. Naturally, you with humility will go to that person. So that otherwise, that knowledge you can never help you. Even if the teacher wants to deliver that knowledge, you are not ready to accept it because you don't have mumukshutvam, you don't have Shraddha. When those two are there, the humbleness is something which is must. And once humility is there, now it becomes possible for the teacher to instruct you in the ways of spirituality. So that's why he is bandhu of namatang satam. So that's why even in Bhagavad Gita it has been mentioned that idang te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana, that this knowledge shouldn't be divulged to all. In the very last chapter, in the 18th chapter, Bhagavan is saying that whatever I have taught you, this is guhya. When it is something which is sacred and secret, it shouldn't be divulged to all. And then he's saying, idang te na tapaskaya, the one who is not having any sense of austerity, na tapaskaya, na bhaktaya, no devotion, kadachana, na cha ashustruve vakchyam, na cha mang yobhya suyati. The one who cavils me, one who hates me, one who is inimical towards me, how can that knowledge be delivered? One who is not devoted, one who has no sense of austerity. So there's divulging this knowledge to such person is useless. It is just like pouring ghee in the ash. It is of no use. This, as even in the modern psychology, they say that those who do counseling, they say, unless the one who needs counseling, he seeks counseling, don't go for just thinking that he needs counseling and you go for counseling. It won't help. That counseling only first one should seek, then only you can really counsel. So that's the thing which has been mentioned here. That actually indicates namatang satam. So for such a person, he is bandhu, he is friendly. So these are the qualities which has been spoken of. Then when you are really earnest and you really approach such a guru, then only the spiritual knowledge can become effective and it can lead to spiritual evolution. So these are the two slokas which speaks of the qualities of the guru. And then in the next class we will just go very quickly from 36 to the 42 slokas. We will rather chant them because it is more like a eulogy, that when the spiritual aspirant approaches the guru, how he should approach. So it's to a certain extent hyperbole. Means Haribol is always associated with hyperbole. So it's a type of hyperbole that also has some value when you have some overflow of emotions, that it always finds the expression as hyperbole. So this 36 to 42 is a bit like hyperbole, but to do justice to the scripture, it has no as such philosophical much implication, but to just as we are studying the scriptures, we will go through it, we will recite it, we will chant it, and just see that how poetic Shankaracharya can be. It's very poetic. So we will go to those slokas before we proceed to the idea that what are the questions the student places before the guru. And then the real Vivekachudamani starts by answering those questions. So that will come in succeeding classes as we proceed sloka by sloka. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskars.